Talk boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Two-time undisputed champion Claressa Shields took to social media and stated, Choi, Hyun-Mi Choi, hasn't defended her title in over 18 months and hasn't been fighting and hasn't gotten stripped. So why should I be stripped? Make it make sense. It appears that Claressa Shields earlier this week took issue with Ring Magazine, stripping her of her Ring Magazine title in the junior middleweight division. And the way you make that make sense is, well, Hyun-Mi Choi's not a Ring Magazine champion. She's a WBA champion, and we all know that the WBA pretty much wings it and has been winging it for a long time. They seem to just make up their rules as they go along, order mandatories where they want mandatories, and pardon who they want to pardon. It's apples and oranges, really, is what it is, because Claressa Shields' issue is with Ring Magazine, whereas Hyun-Mi Choi, she's not even a Ring Magazine champion. She's a WBA champion. I will admit that Claressa Shields raises a very valid point. Even if it is apples and oranges between the WBA and Ring Magazine, it is true that Hyun-Mi Choi, she hasn't been fighting. It is true that even if she does have a fight coming up, Hyun-Mi Choi's been averaging one fight a year for the last 4 going on 5 years. And how many of those fights, most of which can be interpreted as lighter touches, how many of those fights were mandated fights against mandatory challengers by way of the WBA? How many? Because she's not particularly active. And if you look at the list of names in the WBA's super featherweight rank standings, I'm pretty sure that any one of those girls in those ranks would love a shot at Hyun-Mi Choi's title if the WBA forced her. The WBA seems to pick and choose when they want to mandate fights against mandatory challengers, even when there are mandatories outstanding. Lest we forget, a Montestanionis was due a title shot by way of the WBA to Yordenis Ugas's WBA title, but they convinced a Montestanionis to stand down and step aside to allow the Ugas versus Spence unification match on the premise that he'd get to face the winner. And doesn't look like he's facing the winner. What's the WBA doing about that? You think about Hyun-Mi Choi, who we just talked about. There are any number of solid fighters and solid challengers. Good ones. There's some really good fighters in their ranks, but I don't see them ordering Hyun-Mi Choi to fight any of them. Claressa Shields raises a very valid point. There's something to be said about Hyun-Mi Choi and the WBA not stripping her. But when it comes to her own situation with Ring Magazine, it really is apples and oranges. Believe it or not, the Ring Magazine title, their stipulations, what it takes to hold it, keep it, they're actually pretty consistent when it comes to that. Claressa Shields hasn't campaigned as a junior middleweight, a defending junior middleweight champion, in a while now. Over a year. It's been about 17, 18 months? The last time Claressa Shields saw action as a junior middleweight was approximately 18 months ago in March of last year. She has fought since then, but she's fought as a middleweight, not a junior middleweight. And if my memory serves me, Ring Magazine requires a Ring Magazine champion to defend the Ring Magazine title against a top-rated opponent in the division, presumably someone in the top 10 of Ring Magazine's divisional rank standings, and Claressa hasn't done that. Not as a junior middleweight. So the exact same thing happened to Guillermo Rigondeaux years ago in the super bantamweight division. In more recent years, we saw the exact same thing happen to Adonis Stevenson at light heavyweight, back when he was still an active fighter and a defending champion in possession of both the Ring Magazine and WBC titles. He was stripped of the Ring Magazine title because, well, his quality of competition was very poor. More recently, Tyson Fury made several retirement announcements that most people didn't take seriously, but people at Ring Magazine thought enough of those announcements to get in contact with Tyson Fury and ask him directly. And when they asked him, is he really retired? He said that he was, vacated his Ring Magazine title, and the rest, as they say, is history. Ring Magazine have been pretty consistent when it comes to this over the years. They have. I don't think they have an axe to grind with Claressa. I don't think that's why they stripped her. They were just following their own rules, following the guidelines they've been following for years now. That's what I think it is. You can't have the Ring Magazine champion campaigning at some other weight while all this action is happening at junior middleweight, because you're essentially depriving those fighters at junior middleweight, you're depriving them of the opportunity to win that title from you. If you're up there at middleweight, it's what it is. And now the Ring Magazine title, it's going to be up for grabs. It's going to be on the line next month in November on the 12th when Marie-Eve Dicaire takes on Great Britain's own Natasha Jonas. in their three-belt unification match. The winner of the fight will become this division's newly crowned Ring Magazine champion, though lineal status. It's a different conversation. Claressa Shields hasn't retired from the sport of boxing, she hasn't died, and she didn't lose it in the ring. She's undefeated. As strange as this might sound, she still is the junior middleweight division's lineal champion. As if the sport of boxing weren't confusing enough with all these belts floating around. Men's heavyweight news per tweet from Michael Benson. Tyson Fury versus Chisora III is reportedly now the front runner for Fury's next fight. It's claimed the pair have agreed terms to meet for Fury's WBC heavyweight world title on December 3rd in Cardiff, according to Telegraph Sport. And it's like I said in a previous video. Yeah. Chisora, it is a little better than Emmanuel Char fight. It is, though ultimately it ain't box office. Even with the cult following that Chisora has, the consumers, the paying customers, they see no reason for Tyson Fury to fight this guy for a third time because he already beat him 2 times years ago. So why is he fighting him now?
You're telling me you couldn't find somebody better to fight?
Wait a minute. So he's not fighting Manuel John?
He better not. And he might have to double back on these plans to take on Chisora for a third time as the
Boo Birds have quickly reacted to this news.
They're not happy. Why would they be? Why would they be happy that Tyson Fury's next fight, unbeaten 2-time heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, who's still in possession of the green belt, still in possession of the WBC title, why would they be happy that they have to pay box office prices for what is a three-peat, a trilogy that no one was asking for? Surely Tyson Fury should be able to find someone better to fight.
There's gotta be somebody out there.
It's like I told you guys earlier this week. Tyson Fury, he's got a unique problem. A very unique problem. He's running out of box office fights. There are really only 1 or 2 out there. One is the Joshua fight that fell apart, and the other is the undisputed Alexander Usyk fight. Now, Usyk, he's out for the rest of the year. Things fell apart with Anthony Joshua, but Tyson Fury doesn't want to just get out there for any old amount of money.
Not just.
And that's the problem. In order to get this guy the kind of money that he wants, you got to put him on pay-per-view. But if you put him on pay-per-view, well, what's a pay-per-view worthy fight? There are only so many to go around. Tyson Fury himself, he doesn't have the kind of drawing power, the kind of marquee value.
He ain't got the kind of marquee value to where you could just stick him in there with anybody and he can sell the fight off his own name.
It's a hard pill to swallow for Tyson Fury's core supporters that even now, even here today as an unbeaten 2-time heavyweight champion, he's still...
Sorry to tell you this, but he's really not the A-side to Anthony Joshua.
He just doesn't have the same drawing power as Anthony Joshua. He doesn't. And just because he jumps on his social media and says whatever he says and his fans go along with it...
Yeah, he can do that. He can do that till he's blue in the face. But unless that translates into pay-per-view buys, it's all bullshit.
He's got a unique problem because he wants to get out there at least one more time before this year is out, as to not let ring rust and cobwebs to collect, and that much I understand. That much I get, and I can even sympathize. I can.
The idea is to squeeze in one more fight in between this year and next year so that he stays sharp for the Usyk fight.
I get it. It makes a lot of sense. The problem is, Tyson Fury's not going to get out there for just any dollar amount, any amount of money. He doesn't get out of bed.
You see, that's the problem. He wants to get paid a certain way, and in order to pay him, you gotta stick him on pay-per-view.
Once we start talking about pay-per-view, well, what's a pay-per-view worthy fight? What's a box office fight that you can make for Tyson Fury?
It's a pickle, all right.
You see, what Tyson Fury needs is a tune-up fight. And there are only so many circumstances where you can bill a tune-up fight as a pay-per-view. I mean, you need some really emotionally compromised, sentimental fight fans to be able to bill a fight.
It's not impossible. You can do it, but it takes very specific circumstances, and these...
No, there's no way. He's still an unbeaten fighter, an unbeaten champion, an unbeaten 2-time heavyweight champion. And contrary to what some of his fans might say, there are guys out there. The problem is, for Tyson Fury, those guys are high-risk, low-reward opponents. You're talking about guys like Joe Joyce, who's coming off a career-best win over Joseph Parker.
Talking about guys like Martin Bacoli, who's coming off a career-best win over Tony Yoka.
You know, those two fights are more box office fights than than a trilogy with Derek Chisora because there's an element of danger in there for Tyson Fury. You get the sense that ahead of the fight, this guy's gonna have to work for his money. And Tyson Fury, he doesn't want to do that. Not ahead of the Usyk fight.
He don't want to go into the Usyk fight tenderized, all banged up from this fight. He wants a layup fight.
At which point it becomes a question of who's going to pay box office prices to see Tyson Fury in a layup fight, a tune-up fight.
Derek Chisora might be a better choice than Manuel Char, for example, because Derek does have a following in the UK.
Though overall, that ain't box office either.
Especially these days, almost everything is a tough sell.
Anthony Joshua is supposed to be returning that same month, in December, later on in the month, on the 17th. Don't know who he's going to be fighting.
Nope.
Don't know if it's going to be billed as a box office fight in the United Kingdom. Those particulars, they haven't been made available. There seems to be a rumor going around that he's going to fight Chris Arreola.
He better not.
Even as far as layup fights go, rebound fights for a guy who's coming off of 2 consecutive losses, who needs a lighter touch to get back in the winner's bracket, get back in the swing of things, Chris Arreola would still be a poor choice, much less for a box office fight if it is DAZN's intention to bill Anthony's next fight as a box office fight. We don't yet know if that's what the plan is, but if the plan is to bill his fight as a box office fight, his next fight, you need an Otto Valine.
You need a Filip Pekovic. You need somebody better than a Chris Arreola.
You do. Now, those rumors about Anthony taking on Chris Arreola, those are unconfirmed rumors. I've heard absolutely nothing from Matchroom or Eddie Hearn stating that Chris Arreola is in the running for a Joshua fight.
You know, Otto Valine, Zile Zhang, maybe Filip Pekovic. Those guys will do, but not Chris Arreola.
No way. That won't do. That's where the market is right now. You can't stick just any 2 guys into that ring and think you're gonna make a killing at the box office.
Even if you're Tyson Fury.
And you're still unbeaten, you're a 2-time heavyweight champion, you still need a good dance partner. And Derek Chisora for a 3rd time? That ain't it.
We'll see if they don't change their minds.
One guy who's offering himself up to be Tyson Fury's dance partner December 3rd is former unified champion Andy Ruiz, who took to his social media and posted this image with a caption that reads, "My time will come, primero Dios, God first." He wants to take on Tyson Fury and...
Is that Ellie Sackback?
One and only. Reporting. Left a caption that reads, "I told you many times, you beat Fury easy." Not exactly the most informed opinion.
Tyson Fury would be a stylistic nightmare for Andy Ruiz.
Got everything it takes to beat him. The height, the length, the mobility, the gas tank, the punch resistance. There's nothing that Andy brings to the table that can convince me he's got what it takes for...
It's just Ellie Sackback brown-nosing again. It's what he does.
It's not that Andy Ruiz isn't a good fighter. He's a good fighter, but styles make fights, and that stylistic matchup, it doesn't favor Andy Ruiz in any department. However, Andy Ruiz is a dance partner compared to Manuel Char and compared to Derek Chisora for a 3rd time. Andy Ruiz as a dance partner for Tyson Fury, that is more of a box office fight than those other 2 fights.
Andy Ruiz has seen action 2 times since dropping that decision. Anthony Joshua in the rematch. He fought Chris Arreola.
Didn't look too hot in the Arreola fight. If I'm being honest, he didn't look too hot more recently in the Luis Ortiz fight. He didn't, but he is back in the winner's bracket. He is a former unified champion, and he is a better dance partner for today's Tyson Fury than Derek Chisora or Manuel Char.
You know what the problem there is? The problem there is I don't think Andy Ruiz has the autonomy to accept an offer from Tyson Fury.
You might be telling yourself that he had the autonomy to accept an offer from Anthony Joshua 2 or 3 years ago, so what's changed? Well, when he accepted that offer from Anthony Joshua, you must understand he had just inked a deal with the PBC. Only fought once under the banner. He wasn't a big part of their bottom line at that time, but at this time, it's different. He's in the running for a Deontay Wilder showdown.
A few years ago, when he had just inked that deal with the PBC,
didn't get the sense they had any immediate plans for Andy Ruiz. At that time, the conversation was about Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder.
That conversation was all the rage at that time, and
at that time, Andy Ruiz was just another heavyweight, like any other heavyweight, just another heavyweight in the background.
It wasn't until Andy Ruiz upset the apple cart for Anthony Joshua that he garnered any kind of marquee value of his own,
to where fighting him might be worth some money, or you might be able to set up interesting situation with an Andy Ruiz. It wasn't until
after the first Joshua fight that Andy Ruiz garnered any kind of marquee value.
And even after the second fight, where he dropped that decision, lost in lopsided fashion, he still retained some marquee value. That's why Dillian White was calling him out. Luis Ortiz, those two boys back in 2020, they wanted to get him in the ring.
Here today, the people at the PBC, they have use for Andy Ruiz.
They may have their own plans for him that don't include crossing over to the BT Sport Queensbury side of things for a Tyson Fury fight. They may need Andy Ruiz for their next big heavyweight pay-per-view, provided Deontay Wilder makes it past Robert Helenius next weekend. If he wins that fight,
the next in-house fight they can make, the next in-house pay-per-view, could be a battle of the former champions, the former WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder
versus the former unified champion Andy Ruiz. In all likelihood, that's what they're planning if Deontay Wilder wins. Now, if Deontay Wilder loses,
change of plans. Maybe then they'll have a more open mind. Maybe in a scenario like that, they'd let Andy Ruiz cross over and fight Tyson Fury.
Although by the time the outcome of that fight, that Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius fight, by the time the outcome of that fight is decided, Tyson Fury may have already made up his mind and announced his next fight, announced it officially. By then, Andy may be a day late and $1 short. In truth, Andy ain't got what it takes to win that fight anyway. I don't think. He doesn't have the legs.
He ain't got the foot speed to catch up to and keep on Tyson Fury once Tyson Fury
gets on the move.
He doesn't have it. Andy Ruiz is a very capable mid-range to inside fighter, and he shows good hand speed there, good combinations.
But in order for it to even come to that, he's got to get there first. He's got to be able to close the gap, to get mid-range to inside, to unleash those combos. And against Tyson Fury, who's a lot taller and a lot longer, more nimble, lighter on his feet,
Tyson Fury can box Andy Ruiz comfortably from the outside and cruise to a points decision.
This fight would be a stylistic nightmare for Andy Ruiz. In truth, I don't think he's going to get it, though even if he did, I don't think it would work out.
I don't blame him for throwing his name into the hat. I don't blame him for trying.
But it's looking more and more like Tyson Fury will be meeting up with his old buddy, Derek Chisora, in early December.
Andy will settle up with the winner of Wilder versus Helenius.